How's it going, Peng Pirates crew? It's Adrian and we're back with another video. So today we're going to continue going over all of the blue support coming out in OP3. We're going to be focusing first on Nami and all of the support surrounding that archetype, and then just going over some general blue support that every other deck is getting, like Doflamingo and Croc. And before we get into this video, I have a really cool announcement for you guys. So I've just started collabing with other content creators, which has been great. And a recent collab that we just did was with Kekfilet and the Kekcast. So there will be a podcast probably coming out on Monday on Kekfilet's channel. I'll go ahead and link it down below where I talk to him and Saucy, both awesome individuals in this community. And yeah, I'll link both of their channels down below. They have great content, so go ahead and check them out. And then I'll be making a post and a reminder when the actual video goes up. We just talk about the game, One Piece, just our thoughts on the community and everything around it. So if that was something that interested you guys, I would definitely look forward to that. But with that being said, let's get right into our coverage of OP3, starting off with a new leader. So Nami is a really interesting leader that's coming out. This is really the first time I think we've seen a true gimmick leader and gimmick strategy. But Nami's leader effect is pretty simple. It's just when you go down to 0 cards in your deck, instead of losing the game like you usually would, you actually win the game. So the general strategy with Nami is going to mill your own deck and, draw a bunch of cards out from it. And it creates this interesting gameplay strategy that's completely different than every other deck because you have an alternative win condition that you're working towards. Even though every deck has their own different strategies, we're all working towards the same goal. Every other deck is just trying to get you down to that 0 life and then swing in for game while you're at 0 life. With Nami, you are doing a completely different song and dance. Most Nami decks right now are focused on heavy defense and just waiting out your opponent, trying to outlive them while you're drawing out your entire deck. And because of that, her second effect isn't really that useful. Her second effect reads that if she has a Dawn under her and you're able to do damage with the leader, you're going to be able to mill the top card of your deck, which is a very weak strategy, honestly. And in general, because you're going with this alternative win condition of just decking yourself out, you don't really want your opponent to have more cards than they need to, especially when in this deck, you're going to be leaving a lot of Dawn up for counter events. So you don't have a lot of board presence to begin with. Most of your leader swings are just going to be into your opponent's characters. But yeah, I'm sure it'll make a lot more sense once we start looking at these other cards. So let's get right into the new Nami support that's coming out in OP3. So I think it makes the most sense to talk about what her most relevant characters are in the deck. So let's get started with probably one of the more relevant characters to her archetype. We have Zeph. So Zeph is a 5-cost 6k with 1000 counter power. And his effect just reads, when he has a Dawn under him, if he deals damage to your opponent's life, he's going to be able to mill you 7 cards from your deck. And this effect is absolutely amazing for this deck, because if this effect is able to land, you're effectively 1/4 of the way to completing your end goal of getting down to 0 cards. You start off with a starting hand of 5 cards, and then also 5 in life, so you'll have 40 cards left in your deck. If you minus 7 of them right away, that's 33 cards in your deck. So landing a Zeph hit is a huge plus for you. Most decks aren't going to let you do this, but hey, it's there. On top of this, he has an insane on-play effect where he's going to be able to return up to 1 character with a cost of 3 or less to the owner's hand. Then you could trash 2 cards from the top of your deck. So even if you don't land the Zeph hit, he's still milling 2 cards from the top of your deck, which is really nice. And then also he's going to let you bounce a character card with a cost of 3 or less. This could be either used defensively on one of your opponent's cards, but more often than not, it's actually going to be used to bounce one of your own cards back to your hand. Cards like Buggy and Das Bones are going to be really great for this strategy because Buggy is going to search out a card from your deck, and then Das Bones is going to let you recur blue events from your trash. We'll get into Kaya a little bit more later on in the video, but she is essential for this deck. Being able to draw 2 cards and discard 2, and being able to bounce and return Kaya back to hand is really important for the strategy of this deck. So all around, Zeph is just an amazing character for this strategy and an instant 4 of in any Nami deck. So I'm going to cover both of these cards at the same time because I feel like they're very similar in their cost and their effects. And let me just say, I'm loving the new art in OP3. Whoever drew these honestly deserves a raise, a pat on the back. But other than that, these 2 cards are really interesting. So they're both going to be 4-cost 5Ks. Usopp doesn't have counter, but what he lacks in counter, he has in rush. So Usopp is going to be pretty much our only rush blue card with the added effect of when he has a Dawn under him, he's going to be able to mill the top 7 cards of your deck if you're able to do damage to your opponent's life. So again, it's that same effect that Zeph has on him. If you're able to land an attack with Usopp, it's absolutely insane because you're going to be able to mill a huge chunk of your deck. He also has the surprise factor of your opponent doesn't necessarily know that you're going to play an Usopp out. So if you could catch your opponent off guard to where they don't have a blocker or a counter for this card, this this could really come in clutch in those late game scenarios. And then on that topic, we also have Belmir. So Belmir is also a 4-cost 5k, and she has that same effect where if you have a Dawn under her, she's going to mill the top 7 cards of your deck. But her effect is on KO, she's actually going to mill the top 3 cards of your deck as well. So Belmir is very interesting because she actually mills 1/4 of your deck if you're able to land the hit off. She's going to mill the top 7 cards of your deck if you can land a hit, and then she's going to mill 3 more. So a total of 10 cards are going to be milled. I think right now there are kind of 2 different camps of Nami decks. There's one where you're just focusing on counter events and drawing cards, but then there's also one that's more character centric, and Belmir and Zeph are definitely the 2 characters that people lean more towards. I think it's because Usopp is a little bit high rolly. He's only at 5k power, which makes him relatively easy to counter, and it's not like you have to counter anything else against Nami anyway. But nonetheless, these strategies are still trying to be figured out and solved, so these are definitely 2 considerations that you can add into your Nami deck. And then of course, we cannot have a Nami deck without her sister Nojiko. Nojiko can give you some ridiculous value because for 2 Dawn, she has the on-play effect of, if your leader is Nami, return up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less to your opponent's hand. Although she might not be an instant 4 of, the utility that she gives is absolutely insane. Being able to bounce something that costs 5 or less for only 2 Dawn is super Dawn efficient for you. She can be bounced back by Zeph, so she can be reused, and she's mainly going to be used on targets like Basil Hawkins that don't have on-play effects. But you can also combo her with something like Zeph or Belmir, where if they have like a 5 or less blocker, you're going to be able to bounce them for a relatively cheap cost, allowing you to put more Dawn onto your Zeph or your Belmir or Usopp, making that mill 7 swing that much more likely. There are a lot of good cards with on-play effects that she won't be useful into, but we'll see where she lands in the meta once it unfolds for us. So now we're going to be going over some of the new events coming out for Blue, starting out with Sanji's Peel-Off. If any of you have played Hearthstone, this is basically Arcane Intellect. For 3 Dawn, you're going to be able to draw 2 cards. There's not a lot to say about this, it's just a 3 Dawn +1. It also has the trigger effect of activate this card's main effect. Because this card is so generic, there is a chance you might be able to run this in like Doflamingo or Blue Croc. I think there's a little bit more room for experimentation from other blue decks to use this, but as it stands right now, it's mainly used in Nami to thin out your deck. So going over one of the many counter events you're going to run in this deck, we have Usopp's Rubber Band of Doom. This event is a 1-cost 2k counter with the added effect of you can trash the top card of your deck. Being able to be defensive with your life or your characters while also progressing towards that goal of 0 cards in your deck is really useful. And then it also has an amazing trigger effect where you're going to be able to draw 1 card and then trash the top card from your deck. So on trigger, it's going to be able to rip 2 cards out of your deck, which is amazing. And then on top of that, this is a 1-cost blue event, which means you could combo with Das Bones to get it back from your trash after you've used it. So all in all, this card is just solid, it's amazing, and it fits perfectly into this Nami strategy. The other new event we're getting for blue is Gum Gum Giant Gavel. This is also a 1-cost blue event, so you could get it back with Das Bones from the trash. But unlike Rubber Band, this is going to give you plus 4,000 power. So its counter effect is you can trash 1 card from your hand, gain up to 4,000 power during the battle, and then also you can trash the top 2 cards from your deck. So for the same amount of Dawn, you're basically getting double the effect of Usopp's Rubber Band. Of course, you have to trash a card, but with the Nami deck, you actually don't mind trashing cards here and there because there's a lot of them that don't really do a lot in your hand, or they're like kind of dead in your hand. And then also, if you need it, it has the trigger effect of being able to bounce a 4-cost or less back to the opponent's hand. So again, just a really solid counter event. You actually might be able to run this in other blue decks. The cost might be a little bit on the heftier side, but I've seen other blue decks run things like Gum Gum Rain, so this might be more in line than we think because just, again, 1-cost 4k counter events are absolutely crazy, and having something Dawn efficient like that in blue might be very useful to you. And then rounding out all of the blue events that we're getting in this format, we have 3000 Worlds. This card is more generic than Nami specific because of how strong its effect is. For 4 Dawn, you're going to be able to bottom deck a 5-cost or lower character, and this is super important because bottom decking is by far the strongest type of removal in the game. Being able to bypass on KO effects is extremely strong and very unique to blue, and then of course bottom decking means that they're probably never going to see that card again, and this is really useful because we haven't really seen removal like this for for blue, your strongest bottom deck play in blue is going to be the Mihawk, which comes so late in the game that you might not even be able to play it. I think the best example for how useful this card can be is in the Law matchup. Law is so difficult because they get so much value off of the 5-cost blocker Law. Also, there's going to be a lot of red running around. In OP3, and one of the most sticky, annoying cards is the 5-cost Marco. It has the effect to just revive itself by pitching an event card. And of course, the 4-cost Marco is in OP2. These two cards are just sticky, they're annoying to deal with, so bottom decking them is an insane play to do as a blue player. And then also it has the added trigger effect of being able to bottom deck a 3-cost or lower, which is really nice to have as well. Kaya is a 1-cost 2k counter with the on-play effect of draw 2 cards and trash 2 cards from your hand. I went over her a little bit in the Nami portion of the video because she was super useful in that deck, but also this is just probably going to be one of the most used 2k counters in blue moving forward. Unlike decks like red, we actually have a very limited option of 2ks and playable 2ks at that. Kaya's effect to shape your hand is actually extremely useful, especially since we're playing blue where we have the option to stack the top 5 cards of our deck. I cannot even tell you how many times that I've stacked the top cards of my deck and I've wanted to draw the top card or the top 2 cards of my deck so that I could use it if it's like a Love Beam or something like that, or some sort of removal card. There are so many scenarios where if I could just get access to the cards that I'm stacking by drawing them, the game would completely change, and Kaya is that bridge. You know, most decks run 4 Alvida as kind of a staple, just 2k. I think that's going to completely change. Kaya is just going to completely replace her moving forward. She is just probably the most flexible 2k counter you could run in blue. You really can't go wrong with her. But yeah, what do you guys think about the new cards that are coming out for blue? I know in general, if you're not playing Nami, we actually didn't get a lot of support in this set, if any at all. Kaya and 3000 Worlds are very nice additions to the blue decks, but ultimately, this is definitely not our set. In the future for OP4, we do get a lot more blue support, so be excited for that. But what do you guys think about it right now? Let me know in the comments down below. But as always, thank you all for watching. Good luck in any school or career thing that you're doing, anything that you're doing in life, and I'll see you on the next one.